Hello, and welcome to the Creating Totango Contacts from Salesforce portion of the series. The video is devoted to getting data out of Salesforce for the purpose of creating contacts within Totango. So let's first review the data and what we have within Salesforce. In my previous video, we loaded accounts, and under the accounts, we had about 20 different accounts with a customer key. We use this customer key as the identifier within Totango, the key identifier within Totango. And we brought in only customers that have a market segment defined. So those are two key components here. So when we load the contact data, we need to make sure they point to the correct customer key, and we only want to bring in contacts whose market segment on the account level is defined. And I will show you how to do that. Let's look at the contacts and look at the data that we're going to be bringing in. We have name, first name, last name. Those are fairly standard, as well as email. And then we have these two fields that I have created, and these can be formula fields or checkboxes on your, formula fields or pick lists on your contact record. And they should have a value of yes or no. And what they do is, within Totango, the way that a contact is stored is a contact starts off as a user within Totango. Don't get confused by that terminology. It's just the way it is. So first you bring in users into Totango. Those are basically your contacts. Now, there is a contact widget within Totango, and within that widget are displayed the contacts. But in order for the contact to be displayed in that widget, you have to have either one of these fields set to yes and no. And I'll go over the difference between the fields in a moment. But basically, if it's a Totango contact, it will be displayed in that contacts widget. If it's a Totango key contact, it'll also be displayed in that widget. However, the key contacts get a little crown next to them. So it's basically a way to signify that this is a VIP. So along with those fields, I also have title and then mailing address. So let's go ahead and jump into Totango. And I'll start you off at the very beginning. We'll click the hamburger stack, click on global settings, data management, customer data hub. Let's go ahead and use the SFTC Totango demo integration that we've brought in the accounts object with last time. And let's just take a look at those. And they're under the recurring tab. And it's this one right here. And we're going to edit the integration. And if you notice, here is my criteria that I set for the purpose of which accounts to bring in. So I'm actually going to take that and copy it. And then what we'll do with it in a moment is we will create the contacts integration. And for the query filter for the contacts integration, we will use the same filter. However, we will change it around for the association to the account object that owns the contact. So by simply putting account dot in front of the name of the field, I can reference any field within the contact object. So now it will, what this will do is it will make sure that the market segment is not null. And also it only brings in customers who have recently churned rather than those that haven't. So this will only grab contacts where the account's market segment is not null and the account's churn date is in the last 60 days, or the account status does not equal churned. Then I'll choose the object this is coming from. Then this is the contact object. And then I'll populate the fields that I want to bring over. So let's take a look at what fields we want to bring over. So you want name, first name, last name, email, Totango contact, and Totango key contact. So let's go ahead and type those in, and they should start populating as soon as you have them. Name, first name, last name, email, contact, Totango contact, and Totango key contact. Okay, so we've got all those fields. And then we want title and mailing street. And one important element here is that we also need the customer key that we created in our last, that we used as the identifier when we brought in this data set. So this customer key is the accounts ID in Totango, and we need for Totango to go out and fetch this customer key when it pulls back the contacts, so that it knows where to associate the contact. A contact cannot exist in Totango without an association to some account record within Totango. So let's go ahead and bring in customer key as well. And in order to do that, because customer key is not a field that's on the contact object, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do reference addressing, where I'm going to say the on the account, and notice how now there's no longer a auto fill in anymore. It's went to green and it's a custom mapping. Anytime you do a reference custom mapping, you have to type in the API names correctly in order to get it to work. So account.customer key _C, and I believe that will fetch it back. Yes, it did. Excellent. So otherwise I would have gotten an error here that would have said that there's a problem with the way that I've the syntax. So let's review again. We've got all of these fields, including the account.customer key, and we've set up a filter on the contacts to use the same filter that we used on the account, and we set it up so that only the accounts that are coming into Tango, only the contacts of those accounts will come over in this integration. So now let's go ahead and do our mappings. So for user ID, I will use email. That's usually best practice. Some people have a identifier for the user ID that they prefer to use. You can do that as well. For the account ID, I will use the customer key. For the account ID, I will use the customer key, and it's right down at the bottom here. Then now it's asking me to map account.customer key again. It doesn't realize that I use this as the account ID, so I'll go ahead and clear that line item. I'll go ahead and push email to again to an attribute email, just so that we have it for the purposes of campaigns. Then we'll have first name and last name. Looks like it already mapped. If I wanted to change the mapping, I could simply type in change it right here by selecting a different field on the contact record. Again, all these fields are mapping over to the contact. I'll go ahead and leave it alone as it is. A mailing street, it's telling me I'm going to create what this line item is telling me is I'm going to create a new attribute on the contact called mailing street. And I don't actually want that to happen. I have an address in Totango. So I'm going to go ahead and type in address, and notice how it sees that, hey, look, I already have an address in Totango. So I'm going to go ahead and click that and click save. Name should just go to name, that already mapped. Title went to title. And Totango contact, there is a field called contact for that. I'll map that there. And just as a reminder, those should be yes or no, lowercase values only. And then Totango key contact, again, key contact, there it is. And I'll go ahead and save that as well. And so there you have it. That is the mappings. I've brought over the customer key, which is a custom value we had on the account object that we used as the identifier in Totango. And let's go ahead and validate the mappings. We can see here a preview of the data set. We don't have to worry about that. And then let's go ahead and schedule this for an hourly update, and go ahead and save and sync. So one thing I'd like to mention as this is getting going and syncing, we chose hourly synchronization earlier, and I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that Totango uses a bulk API when bringing in data into Totango, which means that there's about 10,000 records per API call when we make a call to Salesforce. We only sync when there is a Delta flag triggered on the record. So we only capture the records that have changed since the last time we synchronized with Salesforce. This makes it so that our footprint is quite small when it comes to the number of API calls that we make in order to get data out of Salesforce. So now that the job is completed, let's go take a look at the accounts and show you how the contacts are showing up within them. So as you can see here, here is my contacts widget, and I can see the key contacts have a crown on them and the regular contacts do not. And so that is how you get contacts into Totango from within Salesforce. Thank you.